Our female lead spent her childhood being abandoned by everyone. Her parents died. Her relatives bullied her and passed her from house to house. And every home she entered eventually threw her out. By the time she turned 12, Layla had already learned one painful truth. No home ever lasts forever, until one day. A quiet gardener brought her to live in a vast forest estate called Arvis, but living in his forest would lead her to someone far more dangerous. For the first time in her life, Layla found something that never abandoned her. The birds. She spent her days watching them, studying them, even climbing trees just to see their nests. But the man who ruled that forest loved hunting them. And one summer, the Duke of Arvis finally noticed her. So grab your popcorn because we're in for one hell of a story. Let's dive in. Years earlier, 12-year-old Layla Llewellyn sits alone on a train, holding tightly to the memory of the last promise her parents ever made to her. They had promised that when spring arrived and the flowers bloomed, they would visit the park together. But spring never came again. And that promise became the final warmth she carried before her life changed forever. After losing her parents, Layla is left completely alone in the world. She slowly becomes used to moving from one relative's house to another. In her aunt's home, the other children bully her until bruises appear on her skin, while the adults pretend not to see. Her uncle's temper often explodes, especially after he loses money gambling. In another household, Layla humbles herself and promises to obey every rule, willing to do anything just to stay. But even then, she is sent away once again. Another relative rejects her simply because she is a girl, claiming she would only grow into a burden. And so she keeps moving from place to place, learning that no home is ever permanent. Over time, being abandoned begins to feel normal, even when it comes from her own mother. Eventually, one relative refuses to keep her but hands her a small piece of paper with a single name written on it. They tell her to go to Hessen in the Berg Empire and find someone named Bill Remmer. That name becomes her only hope. Layla boards another train, leaving behind the city where she was born and raised. When she finally arrives in Hessen, she feels a strange sense of familiarity. This is her father's birthplace, and she feels relieved that she can still speak the local accent. For a brief moment, memories of the days when her family once lived happily together pass through her mind. While searching for the address, Layla approaches a postman and asks for directions. The man reads the name written on her paper, Bill Remmer, and tells her to follow him, since he is already heading there. As they walk through the estate grounds, Layla notices the grand mansion of Arvis Estate, home of the powerful Herhart family. She wonders what kind of life Bill Remmer must live if he works as a gardener in such a magnificent place. Finally, she stands in front of him. Nervous and uncertain, she confirms his name and introduces herself as Layla Llewellyn. Before she can properly explain why she came, the postman hands Bill the letter that had been sent with her. The letter reveals everything. Layla is the daughter of Albert Llewellyn. After her mother ran away with another man, Albert fell into alcoholism. He eventually became ill and died. Since then, Layla has been passed between relatives who treated her poorly. The sender admits that their own family is too poor to take care of her. Among all the remaining relatives, Bill is the only one who might be able to take responsibility. Still, the letter makes it clear that he is free to refuse and send her to an orphanage instead. Bill is completely caught off guard. Although they are related, he never even knew Layla's father. Divorced and already struggling with money, he suddenly finds himself facing a responsibility he never expected. But when he looks at the small, thin girl standing in front of him with only a single suitcase, ignoring her becomes impossible. Layla quietly tells him that she will soon turn 12 and that she can read and help with chores if necessary. After finishing his work, Bill brings her to his home. The quiet house immediately shows that he lives alone. He gives her some food and watches as she eats. Her appetite is small, but he insists that she finish the meal. When he asks if she feels afraid, Layla explains that he doesn't shout or hit her, and that he feeds her well. Her simple gratitude unsettles him. It makes him realize just how little kindness she has known in her life. Even though his finances are tight, he begins to seriously think about what it would mean to let her stay. For now, he tells her to remain indoors until her living arrangements are decided. The next morning, Layla shyly asks if Bill slept well. He answers warmly. When she sees him preparing breakfast, she quietly offers to carry the dishes to the table. After they finish eating, she thanks him sincerely. Bill encourages her to eat a little more, and for the first time, a small, satisfied smile appears on her face. Before long, news begins spreading throughout Arvis Estate that Bill is raising a young girl. The maids whisper among themselves with curiosity and doubt. Bill has lived alone for years since his wife passed away, and old rumors about his late wife's inability to have children begin to resurface. Many of them begin to wonder the same thing. How could a man like Bill possibly raise a child? One maid suggests that Bill might actually be better at raising a child than they think. After all, he has a natural talent for nurturing flowers. He is the best gardener at Arvis estate, and even the great lady of the household has recognized his skill. Still, others quietly disagree. Flowers and children, they argue, are not the same. Meanwhile, Layla slowly becomes familiar with the estate and the people who work there. One day, she offers a maid a small bundle of flowers she picked herself. In return, the maid gives her a few cookies. Layla thanks her politely. Whenever anyone asks Bill about the girl, he simply answers that he will think about it. He makes it clear that she cannot stay forever and that he still needs to decide what to do with her. As spring arrives, it becomes a common sight to see Layla walking beside him in the gardens. She helps with small tasks and quietly learns from him. Even so, many of the employees still believe Bill is only suited to care for flowers, not a child. Soon, visitors begin appearing more often. One person brings leftover cookies and bread from a tea party the night before. When Bill protests that he does not like sweets, the visitor reminds him that they are meant for Layla. Gradually, he realizes something strange. People seem to use Layla as an excuse to visit his home. One person brings clothes, another brings books. Even ladies who have never visited before suddenly begin stopping by. Some show up without any clear reason at all, and Bill finds the whole situation slightly troublesome. One lady laughs and explains the reason. Layla is beautiful, kind, and polite, the kind of child who naturally draws affection from others. She says it is delightful to watch the girl run through the forest and gardens like a small squirrel. She also points out that it has been a long time since the Duke's territory felt this lively. Then she adds something surprising. The young Duke himself was once just like Layla when he was a child. Suddenly, the lady notices Layla climbing a tree and gasps in shock. Bill calmly explains that someone once taught her how to climb and that it can be a useful skill. The lady strongly disagrees. A girl, she argues, should be treated gently like a flower, not raised in such a rough manner. But Bill simply replies that Layla will be perfectly fine as long as she eats well and sleeps properly. When the question of Layla's future comes up again, Bill falls silent. That silence leads everyone to assume the same thing, that she will eventually be sent to an orphanage. Yet in his heart, Bill carefully considers where she might go without being hurt again. Soon summer arrives, and under Bill's quiet care, Layla continues to grow. The forest changes day by day. Plants begin to bear sweet fruit, animals wander deeper through the woods, and warm winds move through the trees. Sometimes Layla sits near the Shulta River, watching sunlight ripple across the water. In those moments, she feels completely free. The nightmare of her past life in La Vida slowly begins to fade. She often climbs into her favorite tree and writes in her notebook, carefully recording everything she sees and feels. She writes every day, wanting to preserve these memories in case life becomes difficult again. When she finishes, she returns home with a quiet sense of peace. One day, she notices Bill preparing to leave and asks where he is going. He tells her they need to go into town and that she should get ready. Layla's expression drops slightly, but Bill reassures her that they are only going to buy new clothes. With the Duke of Arvis returning soon, it would not be proper for her to greet him dressed the way she is now. Along the way, Layla asks Bill about the Duke. Bill explains that the Duke spends most summers at Arvis and is returning now that the season has ended. He casually adds that even though the Duke is 18, he still attends school. Layla looks surprised by his age. Bill then mentions something even more remarkable. The Duke inherited his title when he was the same age as her. At last, the day of the Duke's return arrives. The young lord steps down from his carriage as the estate staff greet him respectfully and guide him toward the mansion. Another carriage waits nearby, and someone comments that his mother still worries too much, believing automobiles are dangerous. But the Duke seems unconcerned. After all this time, he appears perfectly content to travel in something a little more traditional. At the mansion, the employees stand neatly in place, ready to welcome the Duke properly. Everyone waits attentively as preparations are made. Watching from the side, Layla wonders why the atmosphere feels so tense. The workers all seem nervous, standing straighter than usual. A maid nearby notices Layla's new dress and compliments her. The comment draws a small, shy smile from the girl. Soon, the Duke finally arrives. His grandmother greets him first, embracing him warmly. His mother follows, smiling as she remarks on how much taller he has grown since the last time she saw him. As they walk further into the mansion, Layla quietly notices something strange. No one else greets the Duke. Bill explains the reason calmly. The formal welcome will take place the following day. On the walk back, Bill casually mentions something else. The Duke often visits the forest. If Layla wants to continue exploring there, they can simply ask for permission. He also mentions that the Duke enjoys hunting. This surprises her. She asks why anyone would hunt when the mansion already has more than enough food. Bill explains that for nobles, hunting is simply a pastime. Among all animals, birds are considered the most difficult and interesting targets. Layla quietly hopes the Duke does not enjoy hunting too much. Bill realizes he may have said something a young girl should not hear and changes the subject. But Layla keeps thinking about it. A week later, she walks through the forest again, listening to the gentle sounds of nature around her. Then she notices something exciting. The eggs she had been watching have finally hatched. The tiny birds are adorable. Layla carefully observes them, noting that they must wait for their mother to return with food. The sight reminds her of something from her childhood. The time she once asked her own mother if she had to wait for her before eating. Her mother had comforted her warmly. For a moment, the memory lingers. Then suddenly, a larger bird appears. Layla assumes it must be the mother returning, so she quietly climbs down from the tree to avoid disturbing them. She wonders if the little birds will soon learn how to fly. She can't wait to tell Bill about it. But just then, she hears something. Through the trees, she spots someone approaching on horseback. Layla hopes the rider will simply pass by. Instead, he stops. The man dismounts and rests beneath the very tree where she had been sitting. Layla watches carefully from above, almost losing her balance before steadying herself. Then the man suddenly raises his gun and aims directly toward the tree. Fear rushes through her. She quickly speaks up, explaining that she only waited for him to pass before climbing down. The man asks who she is. Layla tells him her name, jumps down from the tree, and runs. Soon she finds Bill nearby. He notices her immediately and asks what happened. Breathless, Layla explains that she met a tall man in the forest, a man with piercing blue eyes and a voice that reminded her of a waterfowl's feather. Bill chuckles softly. It becomes clear what happened. Layla had just met Duke Matthias von Herhart hunting in the forest. Bill reassures her that there is no need to worry. She will probably see the Duke many times while exploring the woods. But before they can continue walking, they hear her name called again, followed by a loud gunshot echoing through the forest. Layla freezes in shock. Bill gently calms her and tells her they should head home. Because the man she saw is no ordinary noble. Matthias von Herhart is the heir to one of the most respected families in the empire. Apart from the royal family itself, few names carry more influence than the Herharts. He moves with the elegance and discipline expected of the highest aristocracy. To many people, he is considered the perfect successor of the Herhart bloodline. Everyone around him admires him. Everyone except Layla. Because on that day in the forest, she saw something different. She watched as bird after bird fell under his aim. To him, the smaller the bird, the more difficult and more interesting the target. Later, when Layla returns to the nest she had been watching, she notices something heartbreaking. The mother bird is gone. Without her, the fragile chicks have died. Quietly, Layla gathers them and buries them herself. In her mind, she gives the Duke a new nickname: the Slayer of Beautiful Birds. Later, Layla sits on a small mat beneath a tree, deep in thought. She wonders if she too might one day be left alone like those birds. Nearby, Bill works under the hot sun. Whenever Layla tries to help him, he gently tells her to rest on the mat instead. If she gets hungry, she can eat the peaches beside her and come down when he calls. Reluctantly, she follows his advice. Not long after, a boy passing by notices her sitting there. He stops and greets her politely. Curious, he asks if she lives there. Layla nods and explains that she stays with Uncle Bill. The boy then asks if Bill is scary. Layla shakes her head and she reassures him that he is not. Layla asks the boy if he lives there as well. He explains that he is only visiting. His father is the family doctor and has come to examine Duke Matthias von Herhart that day. For a moment, silence settles between them. The boy then asks her age. Layla answers, and he smiles, saying he is 12 too. He comments that she seems small, but Layla quickly points out that they are about the same size. He laughs and explains that he is actually the tallest boy in his class, though he still feels small compared to Uncle Bill, who seems taller than every adult around him. The two continue chatting comfortably. The boy remarks that the shade under the tree is pleasant and cool. Layla wonders if he is reluctant to leave. Without saying much, she picks up a small knife, cuts a peach in half, and offers him a piece. He gladly accepts. After a while, he notices that she looks a little sad and asks why. Layla tells him about the Duke hunting birds for sport. The boy says that hunting is common for nobles, but he quietly admits that he feels sorry for the animals and has no interest in doing such things himself. Hearing that, Layla silently decides that he must be a good person. She offers him another slice of peach. He accepts it and comments on how sweet the fruit tastes. Soon, his mother calls out to him from a distance, saying it is time to leave. Before going, he introduces himself properly as Kyle Ettman. Layla introduces herself in return, and the two shake hands. Kyle smiles and says he enjoyed meeting her. He promises that next time they meet, they should play together again, and that he will bring her something delicious. As he runs back toward his mother, Layla quietly wonders if they will truly meet again. After all, she may not stay at Arvis forever. Kyle's mother notices Layla sitting beneath the tree and asks who the girl is. Kyle explains that they are the same age. The woman studies Layla briefly before turning away. Not long after, Bill calls for Layla. She runs toward him, her small footsteps barely making a sound. Bill asks if she is hungry. Layla quickly tells him everything she has eaten that day. She also mentions that she met a boy earlier. As they walk back together, they suddenly come across the Duke and his men, who are discussing their recent hunt. The sight makes Layla feel uneasy again. Bill greets the Duke respectfully, mentioning that it has been some time since they last spoke. He then apologizes and explains that Layla has been staying at Arvis for the time being. Although he has already asked permission from the two duchesses, he felt it would be improper not to inform the Duke as well. One of the men asks if she is the girl they saw in the forest earlier. The Duke remembers the child perched in the tree. He simply nods. With that, the group continues walking. Layla watches quietly, her eyes fixed on the bird one of the hunters carries. She remains lost in thought until Bill gently reminds her that it is time to go home. Back at the mansion, a young noble girl named Claudine von Brandt sits at the table, sighing with boredom. She complains that life there has been lonely. Someone suggests that she play with the boys, but Claudine protests, saying they behave as if she does not exist. Her mother agrees that it must be difficult since Claudine has no friends her own age. Suddenly, Claudine asks about a girl she saw earlier. She insists that she wants to play with her. At first, her mother refuses, explaining that the girl is an orphan from abroad and not meant to be her playmate. But Claudine continues to insist, arguing that playing with the girl would be far more interesting than playing with a puppy. Her mother looks at her in disbelief. Finally, Elise von Herhart rings a bell and instructs the staff to bring the girl. A maid soon approaches Bill with the request. Bill looks surprised and asks why Layla has been summoned. The maid explains that a young lady from the Brandt family specifically asked to play with her. Bill wonders why a noble child would want to spend time with an orphan. But Layla quickly reassures him. She promises she will return soon and asks him not to worry. When Layla arrives, she immediately notices how beautiful Elise von Herhart is. The woman smiles warmly and calls Layla an adorable child. Then she turns to Claudine and asks a simple question. Does she like the girl? Claudine answers cheerfully. Yes, she does. Layla feels confused by all the attention and questions directed at her. In this world of elegant clothes and strict manners, it seems that no one really considers how she feels. Soon, Elise von Herhart calls for the maids and gives them clear instructions. They lead Layla to a luxurious room she has never seen before. There, she is bathed in a grand bathroom, dressed in soft white clothing, and her hair is carefully combed. The attention feels slightly uncomfortable, but Layla quietly endures it. She knows this is Madame Herhart's order, and she worries that any mistake could bring trouble to Uncle Bill. One of the maids gently reminds her that Claudine von Brandt is the daughter of Count Brandt, and that she should behave carefully around her. Layla nods and follows the maid. She steps cautiously into the room where Claudine is waiting. Claudine greets her warmly and immediately asks for her name. Layla introduces herself and mentions her age as well. Claudine looks surprised. She admits she thought Layla was younger because she is so small. Layla thinks quietly to herself that this is the second time someone has said that today. Still, she decides to remain patient, for Uncle Bill's sake. Claudine then asks if Layla can play the piano. Layla answers honestly that she cannot. In fact, this is the first time she has ever seen a piano. Claudine continues asking questions. Does she know how to arrange flowers, play dice, card games, chess? Each time, Layla shakes her head. She has never tried any of those things. Claudine pauses, thinking about it, before finally declaring that Layla is just a child who knows nothing at all. She sighs in disappointment. She had been hoping Layla would be entertaining, but now she thinks the girl is no more interesting than a puppy. After Claudine leaves, Layla sits alone. Part of her wants to return home to Uncle Bill immediately, but she hesitates, wondering if Claudine might come back. A maid soon appears and hands her a coin. Layla stares at it in confusion, unsure what to do. The maid gently places the coin into her hand and explains that when a noble gives a gift, it is polite to accept it. Layla decides not to think too much about Claudine's harsh words. Just then, she hears her name being called. Turning around, she sees Claudine again, this time accompanied by 2 boys. Layla feels a quiet sense of relief when she realizes that the Duke is not among them. Claudine quickly says goodbye before leaving again in a hurry. Not long after, Layla accidentally stumbles and falls. When she lifts her head, she sees someone standing in front of her. It is Duke Matthias von Herhart. His gaze is sharp and cold, looking down at her as if she were something insignificant. For a brief moment, the corner of his lips curls slightly, but then something changes in his expression. The words Claudine had spoken earlier echo in his mind. She's no better than a puppy. Layla quickly bows and runs away, holding back tears. She runs through the forest, guided by the warm lights of the mansion in the distance. When the house finally comes into view, a new feeling settles inside her. The tightness in her chest, the heaviness in her throat. This feeling is sadness. The next morning, Bill asks if she plans to go back to the forest. Layla quietly shakes her head and says she would rather stay home. Bill nods without asking further questions. 2 days have passed since her visit to the main mansion, and Layla has become unusually quiet. She spends most of her time in her room. The house feels strangely silent. Bill sits at the table, noticing how empty everything feels. Before they begin their meal, Layla carefully places the coin she received in front of him. Bill picks it up and suddenly understands why she has seemed so down since returning home. He asks her why she is giving it to him. Layla explains that the coin is too valuable for her, but even if it is small, she wants to repay him for everything he has done. Bill watches her quietly. He remembers the evening she ran home from the mansion. At the time, he suspected something had happened that might have hurt her, but he pretended not to notice because he did not want to make her cry. Now, he gently tells her to keep the coin. She earned it. He explains that she had simply done a job, helping an aristocrat who was terribly bored. Layla looks up in surprise. Bill smiles and congratulates Layla. He tells her that sometimes a person steps into the adult world quietly, without even realizing it. Layla hesitates and asks if she isn't still too young for that. Bill gently explains that being able to earn money on her own is already a step toward adulthood. Layla thinks it is only a single gold coin, but Bill reminds her that many people struggle to earn even a small fraction of that. Then he pushes a plate of food toward her and encourages her to eat more. He jokes that he likes children who eat heartily, like a cow. Layla laughs and asks if eating well will help her grow taller. Bill nods and asks if anyone has been teasing her about her height. Layla admits that people often say she looks too small. He pours her a glass of apple juice and tells her she should buy something she likes, perhaps a new notebook and some colored pencils. Layla then asks if there is anything he would like. Bill jokingly says something expensive. Without hesitation, Layla promises that she will earn more money and buy it for him one day. Bill smiles, saying he will look forward to that. Watching her, he quietly thinks to himself that she is a bright and lovely child. Though she is still small and delicate now, she will likely grow into a very beautiful young woman. But that thought also brings him a quiet worry. In difficult circumstances, beauty can sometimes become a dangerous burden. Without proper guidance, a young girl like her could easily fall into trouble. Bill wants to send her somewhere safe, somewhere he can trust. But no such place seems to exist. As the days pass, he continues to wonder if there is anywhere she could grow up without being hurt again. Time moves forward. The new clothes she once wore awkwardly begin to fit her naturally. The small room that had once been temporary slowly transforms into a comfortable space suited for a young lady. Years pass. Layla is now 18. She has grown into a fresh and graceful young woman, much like a rose Bill has carefully tended over the years. Yet despite everything, she still lives at Arvis estate, together with Bill, the man who became her guardian. One afternoon, Layla returns home carrying a small basket filled with ripe raspberries. She excitedly shows them to Uncle Bill, happily explaining that the forest produced a wonderful harvest this year. She plans to gather more the next day and turn them into raspberry jam. Bill raises an eyebrow playfully and asks if she intends to start a jam business. Layla shrugs with a small smile, saying that it might not be such a bad idea. She then hands him a few peaches she picked as well. Bill laughs softly and comments that summer must have arrived again if the peaches are growing so well. Layla feels a quiet warmth in her chest. She is happy that Bill notices the little things she does. That night, she sits in her room reading beneath the soft glow of a lamp. Her exams are approaching, and she wants to prepare well. However, she notices that her eyes are becoming tired much faster than before. She begins thinking about saving enough money to buy herself a pair of glasses. Her thoughts soon drift back to the forest and the raspberries she saw earlier. If she gathers enough and turns them into jam, perhaps she could sell them and earn some extra money. Just then, Bill walks into the room and finds her still studying. He gently asks why she has not gone to bed yet. Layla explains that she wants to study a little longer. Bill nods with a soft smile. He praises her diligence but reminds her not to push herself too hard. Layla accepts his advice quietly, feeling both comforted and motivated. Some time ago, Bill had made an important decision. Despite the protests of many people around him, he insisted that Layla should attend school. Some argued that educating an orphan girl was unnecessary. They said that even if she continued living at the estate, she could simply marry into another family one day or work as a maid for the Duchess. But Bill ignored their objections. He believed firmly that Layla deserved the chance to learn and grow. And so, every day, Layla follows behind him on the road to school. With each step, she begins to discover more about the unfamiliar world that exists beyond the walls of the mansion. Each day at school brings Layla new knowledge and curiosity. She becomes excited about everything she learns and eagerly shares those discoveries with Bill whenever she returns home. Bill always listens warmly. Every time she speaks, he smiles and tells her that she will grow up to become an outstanding adult. Those words settle deeply in Layla's heart, like a quiet blessing she carries with her. Determined to live up to them, she resolves to do well in her exams. To her, succeeding in school feels like the first step toward repaying Bill for everything he has done for her. When summer vacation finally arrives, Layla feels both excited and hopeful. She knows that the Duke of Arvis will soon return. After graduating from college, Matthias von Herhart has been commissioned as an army officer, continuing the long military tradition of his family through the Royal Military Academy. He has not visited Arvis for 2 years, having spent that time serving on distant front lines. Thinking about his return, Layla suddenly remembers the distant sound of gunfire that once echoed through the forest. During the vacation, one of her friends talks excitedly about traveling with her family and asks Layla what plans she has for the summer. Layla admits she has not decided yet. Then her friend suddenly points towards someone nearby. Layla turns and sees a familiar figure, Kyle Ettman. He waves warmly at her. Layla waves back, quickly saying goodbye to her friends before running toward him. With a playful smile, she asks why he came all the way here. She jokes that it would have been more comfortable for him to simply visit her home later. Kyle laughs and explains that he was passing by anyway. In fact, he admits that he even skipped tennis club practice just so he could walk home from school with her. Behind him, a few of his teammates complain quietly, muttering that he has once again gone to see that girl. As Kyle and Layla walk together, he admits that he ran as fast as he could to reach her. He comments on how hot the day has become. Then he asks if she would like to get some ice cream. Layla happily agrees. Afterwards, she suggests stopping by the bookstore because there is a book she has been wanting to read. Kyle immediately agrees. Meanwhile, his teammates shake their heads in the distance, complaining that someone should remind him to return to club practice the next day, or he might end up removed from the team entirely. Inside the bookstore, Layla excitedly shows Kyle the book she wants. She begins talking about migratory birds returning during this season. She explains that during the vacation, she wants to observe different birds and record everything she sees in her notebook. Kyle listens quietly. As she speaks, his gaze lingers on her. For a moment, he wonders if today might finally be the day he confesses that he likes her. Layla notices him staring. She asks gently if he wants to say something. Kyle quickly shakes his head and denies it, awkwardly changing the topic. Soon, Layla says that they should probably head home. Kyle hesitates. Deep down, he feels that it may not be the right moment to confess his feelings. He does not know how she truly feels about him, and rushing things might make her uncomfortable. The last thing he wants is to damage the friendship they have built over the years. Still, it becomes harder and harder to stay patient. Every day, Layla seems to grow more beautiful. Kyle simply wants to see her smile for a long time. Then another thought crosses his mind. Perhaps there is no need to start with the word lover. They have known each other for so long already. Maybe it would be better if they simply became a couple right away, living comfortably together like a husband and wife who understand each other better than anyone else. He even imagines marrying her after graduating from college. In his mind, he pictures how she might look wearing a wedding dress. And he becomes certain of one thing. No bride in the world would ever be more beautiful than her. Kyle Ettman's wife, Layla Ettman. The thought makes him grin. Suddenly, he bursts into laughter. Layla looks at him in confusion and asks why he is laughing. Teasing him, she wonders if it is because she failed her geometry test. Kyle pretends to be shocked. Layla quickly adds that he would not understand anyway, since he always gets perfect scores in geometry. Kyle laughs and runs after Layla, telling her they should walk together. As they head down the road, he mentions that the Duke has returned and wonders how Layla can remain so uninterested. According to him, the entire mansion has been in chaos because of the Duke's arrival. Layla shivers slightly at the thought. Although Claudine von Brandt was the one who humiliated her before, the Duke left behind a different kind of mark on her heart. It is a deeper scar than the contempt she experienced while moving between relatives' homes as a child. Whenever she sees Matthias von Herhart, that memory resurfaces, so she tries her best to avoid him. Noticing her mood, Kyle tries to lighten the conversation. He jokes that perhaps he should become an officer like the Duke and earn medals of his own. Layla laughs and teases him, reminding him that he cannot even kill a chicken. Kyle immediately frowns and asks why she keeps bringing that up. The memory still embarrasses him. He recalls a day the previous year when Bill had asked why he was always visiting their house instead of going home. Bill pointed out that Kyle hardly even ate at his own house anymore and warned him not to come over so often. Kyle had thought to himself that studying together was the only excuse he had to spend time with Layla, so he offered to pay for meals whenever he visited. Bill reluctantly agreed, but then Bill gave him a simple task: catch a chicken for dinner. Kyle failed miserably. When he could not even catch the bird, Bill bluntly called him a good-for-nothing of the Ettman family. The words hurt so much that Kyle burst into tears while Layla tried to comfort him. Since that day, Kyle has noticed that Bill rarely calls him by his name anymore. Instead, he jokingly calls him good-for-nothing. Now, Layla repeats the phrase playfully, admitting that she actually likes him because he is that kind of person. Kyle raises an eyebrow and asks if she is teasing him again, but Layla quickly explains what she means. She says she wants his hands to save people, not to shoot them. Kyle pauses and considers that. Then he asks if he should become a military doctor instead, wondering if doctors also receive medals. Layla nods eagerly, saying it would be an amazing job since it saves lives. Surely someone who does that would deserve a medal. Just then, they notice a car approaching along the road and step aside to let it pass. Kyle wonders aloud if the Duke might be inside. Layla shakes her head and says it is probably Lady Herhart because the Duke dislikes automobiles. Kyle mutters that he cannot understand why cars combine such beautiful design with geometric precision. Layla smiles and points out that he has started talking about geometry again. Kyle reaches into his bag to show her some geometry notes he prepared, but then realizes he left them at home. Layla decides it is time to head back. Before leaving, she tells him to come over later for dinner and bring the notes with him. Kyle asks if she is waiting for him or for the notes. Layla laughs and says it is the notes. Kyle sighs dramatically but promises to return soon after getting them. Layla tells him to take his time, and the two go their separate ways. Not long after, the Duke's car slows to a stop along the road. Matthias von Herhart steps out, deciding to walk the rest of the way through the surrounding woods. Sunlight glints off the polished surface of the vehicle as the men accompanying him remain nearby. One of them quietly remarks that the Duke arrived a full week earlier than expected. Because of that, the mansion staff had barely enough time to prepare. And now the Duke suddenly wants to walk alone. Matthias simply shakes his head and says he will see them later at the mansion. The men drive away, leaving him alone. Removing his cap, Matthias walks slowly through the trees. As he moves through the forest, his thoughts drift back to something his mother said recently. She reminded him that he should become engaged this summer. Thinking about it now, Matthias realizes she is probably right. For someone in his position, marriage is not a matter of romance. It is simply duty, the proper step in continuing the family line and producing an heir. His grandmother has long believed that Claudine von Brandt would be the ideal match to become the next Duchess. Matthias does not disagree. Claudine possesses a distinguished lineage and excellent qualifications. In fact, a meeting between them has already been planned for later this summer. Reflecting on it, Matthias cannot help but think that a life like his has everything carefully arranged from the very beginning. Every detail planned, every expectation clearly defined. There is little space for desire or uncertainty. Sometimes he even admits to himself that it feels slightly boring. Everything has already been decided for him. He has lived as the perfect child, the perfect student, and the perfect officer. Now the next step is simple. He will marry the perfect woman and become the perfect father, continuing the Herhart family lineage, just as his father and grandfather did before him. As these thoughts cross his mind, a sudden movement catches his attention. A girl on a bicycle rides past him along the forest path. She glances back, recognizes him, and immediately loses her balance, tumbling off the bicycle. Matthias pauses. Looking more closely, he wonders if she is the same girl the gardener once took in, the child who used to live near the estate. The girl quickly scrambles to her feet, apologizing repeatedly as she gathers the books that scattered across the ground. Matthias calls her name. Startled, she apologizes again. When she bends down to pick up a pen, he stops her gently and reminds her that he called her. She raises her head and answers politely that she is listening. But Matthias says nothing more. Instead, he simply turns and walks away. Layla remains standing there, watching him disappear through the trees, confused by the brief encounter. She wonders why he called her only to leave without another word. For a moment, she hesitates, unsure whether she should continue along the same path or avoid meeting him again. Meanwhile, Matthias continues walking through the forest. Quietly, he reflects on how much Layla has grown. She is no longer the small child he remembers. Now she is a young woman. As summer reaches its peak, the gardens of Arvis estate bloom beautifully. The roses that symbolize the pride of the Herhart family are in full blossom. The Duke has returned. Inside the estate, the servants move busily from place to place. Preparations are underway for the many gatherings and celebrations that accompany the Duke's return. Guests are arriving, and every detail must be carefully arranged. Among the noble families of Berg, the Brandt family holds the second highest prestige after the Herharts. Count Brandt is one of the most important guests expected at Arvis. Naturally, special attention is given to his daughter, Claudine von Brandt. Officially, the Brandts have come to spend the summer visiting relatives. However, everyone understands the real reason for the visit. Claudine's engagement to the Duke is expected to be announced. Negotiations between the two families are already well advanced, and the arrangement has been handled with friendly agreement on both sides. No one is truly trying to hide the purpose of the visit. At that moment, Claudine admires the large greenhouse on the estate grounds. She comments on how beautiful it is and compliments Lady Elise von Herhart for maintaining it so carefully. Elise smiles and explains that she has cared for the greenhouse for many years. She adds that she looks forward to the day she can pass it on to the next lady of the house, someone who will truly appreciate its beauty. Then she suggests that Matthias show Claudine the wonders of Arvis while the adults continue their discussions. Matthias rises from his seat and politely offers Claudine his hand. As he does, a brief memory flashes through his mind. Layla kneeling on the forest path, picking up her pen. But the thought disappears quickly. Standing before him now is Claudine von Brandt. She has grown into the image of a perfect noble lady, elegant, composed, and refined. Matthias escorts her through the estate with formal politeness, almost as if they are meeting for the first time. Back at the table, both families observe their interaction. Although Matthias and Claudine have never been particularly close, they have known each other long enough to understand one another. Their marriage is not based on romance. It is a political union between two noble families. As they walk through the greenhouse, Claudine becomes fascinated by the birds kept inside. She notices how calm and obedient they seem around people and wonders what the secret might be. A caretaker explains that their wings have been clipped. Claudine looks surprised and asks whether the birds feel pain when this is done. The man reassures her that only the tips of the feathers are trimmed. If she wishes, he can even show her. She looks toward Matthias for permission. He nods. The caretaker brings a small bird forward. Matthias asks what kind of bird it is. The man replies that it is a songbird known for its beautiful voice. He explains that trimming the wings prevents it from flying too far away. Claudine asks again if the wings are truly cut. The caretaker calmly explains that it is done carefully and actually protects the birds from danger. The Duke picks up the bird, but the caretaker gently takes it from him, explaining that birds need time to adjust after their wings have been clipped. He then asks Claudine if she would like to try taming it. Claudine politely declines. Instead, she turns to the Duke and suggests they return to the table. The Duke takes her hand and leads her back, instructing the man to bring the bird to his room. Later that day, Layla arrives at the mansion with a small bouquet of flowers. A maid thanks her, and Layla casually remarks that it seems someone important will soon arrive at the estate. The maid smiles and leans closer, telling her that the entire Brandt family will be visiting. Layla's eyes widen when she hears that Claudine will be among them. When the maid adds that the visit is connected to Claudine's engagement, Layla feels a mixture of curiosity and unease. Meanwhile, in the forest, Layla gathers ripe raspberries. She glances toward the distant estate. She had hoped the woods would remain quiet even after the Duke's return, but something in the air makes her feel that something important is about to happen. Thinking it may be better to avoid trouble, she decides to stop picking raspberries for the day. She wants to finish before the Duke begins spending more time in the forest, and before Claudine starts calling for her at the estate. At that moment, the Duke's carriage waits on standby. He had been scheduled to meet the estate director at noon. Instead, he chooses to walk along the Schulte River and through Arvis Forest. He enjoys the scenery so much that he once converted the nearby boathouse into a small private cabin. His mother and grandmother rarely visit the riverside, leaving the place entirely to him. There he often spends hours watching the river and the trees, reading books, resting when he grows bored, and most of all, swimming, his favorite activity. As he relaxes by the water, his thoughts drift toward the marriage negotiations between the Herhart and Brandt families. Everything has proceeded exactly as planned. The engagement is expected to last 1 year, and by the end of summer it will be publicly announced, securing his position as Duke of Herhart. He also reflects that there may soon be little reason to continue his military duties. After serving a year or two as an imperial guard, he plans to leave the army and devote himself fully to the affairs of his family. Meanwhile, high in a tree nearby, Layla sits comfortably with a peach in one hand and a book in the other. A loose page from her book suddenly slips free and drifts to the ground. As she looks down, she notices someone swimming in the river. It is the Duke. She blinks several times, hardly believing what she is seeing. Quietly, she prays that he will not notice her. But before she can react, he begins moving toward the shore. Her heart starts pounding. Layla quickly jumps down from the tree and runs through the underbrush. As she rushes through the forest, she suddenly collides with Kyle, who had been searching for her. Startled, he asks if something happened in the woods. Perhaps if she encountered a wild animal. Layla struggles to catch her breath, thinking that meeting a wild animal would have been far less frightening. Kyle tells her to calm down and asks about the raspberries she had gone to pick. Suddenly remembering them, Layla gasps. But in her panic, she blurts out that she cannot go back for them and runs off again. Meanwhile, the Duke, now dressed, walks along the riverbank and eventually reaches the patch where the raspberries had been growing. He frowns slightly, wondering if someone is trying to wipe out the entire raspberry crop in Arvis. His thoughts drift back to the first day he saw Layla sitting in a tree. Her name briefly crosses his mind. He shakes his head, still unable to believe that she climbs trees simply for fun. Not long after, Layla finally manages to buy her long-awaited eyeglasses, using the money she earned from selling raspberries. As she walks home wearing them for the first time, she marvels at how clear everything looks. The world appears sharper and brighter than before. Yet even on such a beautiful day, a shadow lingers in her thoughts. She wonders why certain painful memories keep returning when everything around her seems so peaceful. Layla's thoughts drift back to the moment she saw the Duke swimming in the river. Even though the riverside is her favorite place, she decides it would be wiser to avoid it until the Duke leaves. She has no desire to risk another awkward encounter. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls her name. Layla turns and sees the Duke walking beside Claudine. She greets them politely with a quiet hello. Claudine studies her for a moment, noticing how much Layla has grown into a young lady. Curious, she begins asking about her. Claudine explains that they are on their way to have tea at a hotel and invites Layla to join them. She glances toward the Duke to see if he objects, but he says nothing. Encouraged by his silence, Claudine gently insists that Layla come along. Layla hesitates. She remembers that she is supposed to meet Kyle downtown. but after checking the time, she realizes she still has a little time to spare. Reluctantly, she agrees to join them. At the hotel, Layla immediately feels a strange tension. Although Claudine invited her, the situation places her in an uncomfortable position. She is physically present, yet socially expected to behave as if she is invisible. It is a feeling she has known since she was 12. Still, with her new glasses, she can now see the Duke clearly. His gaze makes her skin prickle with discomfort. She cannot help wondering whether he feels embarrassed about what happened the other day. During the tea, both Claudine and the Duke casually mention the upcoming party at the estate and suggest that Layla attend as well. Layla remains quiet, unsure how to respond. After a moment, she politely asks for permission to leave, explaining that she must meet her friend Kyle. Claudine smiles and nods, saying it was nice to see her again. Layla bows slightly, says goodbye, and quickly leaves. As she walks away, the Duke watches her silently, his expression unreadable. When Layla finally meets Kyle, he immediately notices the excitement on her face and begins teasing her. "You achieved your goal," he says with a grin. Layla frowns and tells him not to tease her. Then she notices that he is still smiling. She asks why he has been grinning like that for so long. Kyle leans closer and jokingly says that when she pushes up her glasses, her eyes look like a little mouse. Layla scolds him lightly, but he only laughs and suggests they find something to eat since he is hungry. Meanwhile, the Duke and Claudine are returning to the estate. Their carriage slows when the road ahead becomes briefly blocked. Through the window, the Duke suddenly notices Layla walking beside Kyle. His eyes narrow slightly. He realizes that Kyle Ettman, the doctor's son, is the person Layla was planning to meet earlier. The thought lingers in his mind as the carriage continues down the road. The following morning, Claudine's mother watches Layla and Bill through a window at the estate. She quietly wonders whether Layla is still living there under Bill's care. Claudine confirms it with a small smile and remarks that Layla seems to grow more beautiful every day. Her mother frowns slightly and wonders whether that is truly a good thing. Deep down, she already knows the answer. Layla had always been pretty, but now she has grown even more striking than expected. She has a small, delicate frame, gentle features, bright green eyes, and smooth, pale skin. That is why Claudine's mother suggested inviting Layla to tea earlier. She wanted to see how the Duke would react to a young woman who had grown up quietly on his own estate. But from what she observed, the Duke behaved exactly as expected. He showed only moderate interest, carefully controlled indifference, and flawless aristocratic composure. Claudine's mother remains uneasy, but she chooses not to dwell on the matter. She remarks that Layla is still young and likely knows little about men. She begins to say that if it were her... But Claudine interrupts sharply. She asks whether her mother truly expects her to worry about other men when she is about to marry Duke Matthias von Herhart, one of the most eligible men in the entire empire. She adds calmly that powerful men often have a mistress or two. Claudine allows herself a quiet thought. Perhaps something unexpected might happen after all. The Duke could be drawn in by the beauty of a young woman, just as her father, and many other men once had been. But she quickly dismisses the idea. A man who understands how to treat women with respect is usually harmless. It is reckless, ignorant men who cause trouble. The Duke, she believes, is not that kind of man. As the head of a noble family, he would never abandon his duties for a moment of desire. Still, another thought crosses her mind. If something inappropriate were to happen, she would prefer it to be with someone like Layla, a gentle, obedient girl who could easily be controlled. A girl who would never threaten her position. Her mother blinks in surprise. Memories of her own past return to her, of weakness, of repeated miscarriages, and of the long struggle that finally resulted in Claudine's birth. Quietly, she admits that nothing good can come from having a girl like Layla living so close to the Duke. She wonders why she had never noticed the girl before, even though she visits the estate every year. Deciding that the matter cannot be ignored, she resolves to speak with the Herhart family about it. Meanwhile, Claudine's thoughts turn inward. She worries that her father's affection may cool as he grows more frustrated about not having a male heir. She wonders when a young, beautiful woman might appear, one who could give birth to a son and take her father's attention away. For a moment, she almost pities her mother, who has lived with that fear for years. But the feeling quickly fades. Claudine refuses to live the same way. She asks herself what difference it would make if the Duke were interested in someone like Layla. In the end, she concludes it would only be temporary desire, nothing more. Her mother suddenly calls her name sharply, insisting that Claudine does not yet understand what love truly is. but Claudine remembers the promise she made to herself long ago. She will never live like her mother. She will never surrender to a love that abandons her once passion fades. Instead, she will pursue a perfect marriage, one that protects her dignity above all else. Elsewhere on the estate, the Duke sits quietly by a window, holding a bright yellow bird. Through the glass, he notices Layla moving below in the distance. At the same time, Kyle arrives at Layla's house. Seeing that no one is home, he assumes she must be helping Bill somewhere nearby. Deciding to wait, he remains there, certain she will return soon. While he waits, his thoughts drift toward her. Even with glasses, the future Mrs. Ettman, he thinks, looks breathtaking. Memories surface in his mind. The time she promised to buy him dessert because he bought her a sandwich. The moment he reminded her to hold on tighter while riding his bicycle. Sometimes he wants to rush forward and confess everything to her. But he reminds himself of the promise he made, to wait for the right moment. Yet whenever he sees her, that resolve weakens. His heart begins to race. Heat spreads through his body. Even his dreams sometimes leave him restless and uneasy. More than anything, he fears that one day someone might suddenly take Layla away from him. The thought pushes him dangerously close to confessing his feelings. Just then, he hears his name. Kyle turns and sees Layla approaching, wearing a wide-brimmed hat. The sight makes him burst into laughter. He teases her immediately, saying the hat looks tacky and asking where she found it. Convinced she would never buy something like that herself. Layla and Bill both look surprised, but Layla quickly explains that Bill bought it as a gift for her. Kyle studies the hat again. After a moment, he changes his opinion, admitting that it actually looks quite pretty, and even tasteful. They head inside together. Soon, food is placed on the table. Layla gestures toward the dishes and invites Kyle to eat. Kyle hesitates for a moment, still surprised that they prepared such a meal just for him. But after a polite smile, he begins eating, quietly grateful for their kindness. Later, he joins Layla on the balcony. The warm afternoon breeze moves gently around them. Kyle asks softly if she is still upset with him. Stepping closer, he apologizes sincerely. Then he asks about the hat. "Why the hat?" he asks. Layla explains simply that she asked for it herself. Kyle looks at her with mild surprise. She has never asked him for anything before. Layla continues explaining that her uncle had been upset when she bought her expensive glasses without telling him first. Bill had gently scolded her, asking if she did not trust him enough to consult him before making such a purchase. He had never been angry with her before, and despite her explanations, the disappointment in his eyes made her heart ache. So Layla asked him for a small favor instead. A simple, pretty hat. Bill bought it for her himself. Some people teased her for wearing something they thought looked tacky, but to Layla, the hat is special. To her, flowers are the most beautiful things in the world, and a hat covered in flowers must be the most beautiful hat of all. When she tells Kyle this, he suddenly feels guilty. He mutters that he feels like trash for making fun of it earlier. Layla smiles warmly, knowing that he understands now. Kyle promises that he will never tease her about the hat again. Just then, Bill walks into the room and notices Kyle still there. "You haven't gone home yet?" he asks with a playful frown. Kyle laughs and shrugs lightly. Bill then tells Layla that he will be heading into town for a while. As Kyle watches them, he feels a small, inexplicable pang of jealousy. Deep down, he knows that anyone who loves Layla must accept second place. For her, the most important person will always be Uncle Bill. After Bill leaves, the two sit nearby reading. Kyle worries that this might be the only chance they have to talk, but Layla becomes completely absorbed in the story she is reading. From the corner of his eye, he watches her quietly, admiring how beautiful she looks when she reads with full concentration. Finally, he calls her name. Layla lifts her head, but something outside the house catches her attention. Kyle follows her gaze. The Duke is approaching. Kyle immediately steps aside, and Layla does the same, brushing crumbs from her mouth. Kyle greets the Duke politely. Layla speaks softly, explaining that her uncle has gone into town for a while. She asks if the Duke needs assistance. The Duke replies that she can help bring him some roses. Layla looks slightly surprised and asks if he means picking roses from the garden. He tells her to choose them carefully and bring them to a separate building. Then he leaves. Seeing her about to go, Kyle suggests that they run the errand together. Layla waves him off, saying it is not a big task. Kyle hesitates and asks if he should wait for her there, but Layla insists that he go home instead. She teases him, asking if his mother will be angry if she finds him lingering there again. As Layla walks toward the garden, she wonders why the Duke personally came to ask her for help. She decides that he must have simply been passing by. Behind her, Kyle lingers for a moment and calls out softly. Layla turns and waves back with a smile. When she delivers the roses, the Duke examines them briefly and tells her to bring more, this time in brighter colors. Layla freezes for a moment, surprised by his unusually specific request. Still, she returns to the garden and gathers another batch. The Duke continues asking for more flowers, sending her back and forth several times. Layla soon realizes that he is staying in the annex by the river, a private place where guests rarely enter. Even some servants are restricted from going there. She wonders if the flowers are meant for Claudine, who will soon be engaged to him. Perhaps that is why he asked for brightly colored roses, flowers that would suit Claudine's taste. But as the constant trips continue under the hot summer sun, Layla begins to question the Duke's reputation. How can someone who torments another person in the heat of summer be considered a good man? She scolds herself for thinking about him at all. In truth, she admits that she absolutely hates him. On her way back with another batch of roses, Layla passes a man and a lady who compliment her on her hard work. Curious, she asks where they are going. They reply that they are returning to the main mansion. After they say goodbye, Layla realizes something important. The Duke is now alone in the annex. A small wave of anxiety rises in her chest. She steps inside quietly, wondering if he might be asleep and debating whether she should wait or simply leave the flowers. Just then, the Duke opens his eyes. Layla announces that she has brought the flowers and hesitantly asks if he wants her to fetch more. The Duke tilts his head slightly and asks if she would do it if he requested it. Layla replies that she will if she made a mistake, but asks him to please tell her the color he wants this time. Realizing that her thoughts slipped out aloud, she feels momentarily embarrassed. The Duke simply says it is fine and gestures for her to sit. Layla believes she chose the colors correctly, and she is about to refuse the seat when he calls her name again. He reminds her that arranging the flowers in the vase is part of the task. Layla admits that she is not very skilled at flower arranging. The Duke asks if he should do it himself. Reluctantly, she sits down. While he writes at his desk, he occasionally glances toward her. Looking at Layla reminds him of the golden canary in his bedroom. At first, the bird flailed wildly whenever it was moved, but over time it became tame. Now it jumps onto his hand willingly, rubs against him, and sings softly whenever he approaches. Watching Layla quietly work, a thought crosses his mind. What about her? After a moment, Layla finishes arranging the flowers. She nervously asks if he likes them. The Duke examines the arrangement and calmly says that it is poor. Layla apologizes and offers to bring a maid who is more skilled next time. Instead, he tells her to sit and eat. Seeing her confused expression, he wonders if she dislikes the reward he prepared. His mind drifts briefly to the memory of her sitting with Kyle earlier, eating happily and smiling brightly. He had wanted to give her something similar as a reward. Layla thanks him politely and says she will leave if there is nothing else he needs. The Duke tilts his head again and asks whether those words are simply polite, or whether she would do more if he asked. Layla quietly sits down and begins to eat, but she already feels full after lunch and dessert. Her body is still warm and sweaty from running through the garden, and she doubts she can swallow much. Her thoughts begin to wander. Is this food meant as a gift, or as punishment for the poor flower arrangement she made? Suddenly, the Duke reaches forward and removes her hat. He reminds her calmly that ladies should not wear hats indoors. Layla's chest tightens. She remembers how easily he laughed at her the last time she was uncomfortable, and how casually he orders her around as if she were insignificant. She refuses to let the hat her uncle bought become something he mocks. Layla stands up, determined to leave, silently hoping he will give the hat back. The Duke tells her that she should finish eating first. Then he will return it. Layla refuses, feeling her patience slipping away. The Duke raises the hat slightly out of her reach. Layla stretches her hands upward, trying to grab it. Fear flickers through her mind as old memories return, of being pushed into a river by her cousin. She hesitates. Then the Duke casually throws the hat through the open window. It lands on the river below. Layla's heart jumps, but she quickly clutches her glasses, unwilling to risk losing them. Carefully, she steps down into the shallow water beneath the building. The water grows deeper as she moves forward, slowly rising until it reaches her height. Each step reminds her of past fears. Still, she reaches desperately toward the floating hat. Her arms strain, but the hat drifts just beyond her reach. From above, the Duke watches silently. In his mind, the situation seems simple. She only needed to follow a single instruction: eat. Then the hat would have been returned when she left. Instead, she made a fuss over something small, and now she is nearly drowning. Without hesitation, the Duke jumps into the water. Moments later, Layla sits upright, clutching the hat tightly against her chest as she struggles to catch her breath. The Duke watches her with quiet curiosity. He wonders why the hat means so much to her. Meanwhile, Layla cannot understand why he is laughing in a moment like this. He winks at her. For a brief second, she feels the urge to splash water at him, but he is already completely soaked. Layla flicks a little water from her skirt toward the Duke. He wipes his face calmly and remarks that she does not seem to be enjoying herself very much. Then he waits, clearly expecting her gratitude. The reaction startles her. Layla thinks quietly that none of this would have happened if he had not thrown her hat into the river. But in the Duke's mind, the answer is simple. None of this would have happened if she had simply eaten the sandwich he gave her. And considering how reckless it was for her to jump into the river without knowing how to swim, he finds the situation strange. Layla forces herself to endure the moment. She reminds herself that he is the Lord of Arvis, and she cannot risk causing trouble for Uncle Bill. She bows and thanks him. The Duke tells her to repeat it in a more ladylike manner. Layla apologizes for not being as refined as other young ladies, but the Duke tells her that she should try harder when she is in his presence. Layla stares at him for a moment. Then she adjusts her hat, bows again, and thanks him properly. After that, she announces that she will take her leave. In her mind, she decides that she will no longer argue with him, or allow him to treat her like a joke. Layla runs back toward home, fighting back tears. The feeling reminds her of another time she had run like this before, clutching a gold coin tightly in her hand. Her thoughts drift back to a day when she saw the Duke walking through the forest with Claudine. The scene had looked like something from a fairy tale. A beautiful lady walking beside a handsome gentleman. She had paused to watch them. A soft wind had carried Claudine's hat away, and the Duke had stepped off the path to retrieve it for her. Layla had thought the gesture looked elegant. Earlier, he had done something similar for her. But the feeling had been completely different. His face had been cold, as if the act meant nothing at all. Today, her heart aches more than usual, and exhaustion weighs heavily on her. Frustrated, she kicks a piece of dried fruit along the path and watches it roll away. Her vision suddenly blurs. That is when she realizes something. She forgot her glasses at the Duke's annex. Meanwhile, the Duke stands inside the room, holding the glasses in his hand. As evening approaches, the breeze drifting through the annex grows cooler. He studies the glasses thoughtfully. Layla's eyesight must be quite poor, he thinks. Perhaps that is why she often frowns slightly when she looks at things. A memory appears in his mind, of the small child who once stared at him with a furrowed brow, looking shabby and unimpressive. He stands up and begins tossing the glasses lightly from one hand to the other. Then another image comes to mind. Those bright green eyes that once shone so vividly with life. The fresh, sweet scent that seemed to surround her. Softly, almost without thinking, he whispers her name. Layla. The name feels warm, like midsummer sunlight. After a moment, he places the glasses inside a drawer. Slowly, the memory of those green eyes fades. That evening, the Duke leaves the estate in his car, heading away from Arvis. Meanwhile, Layla sits at home with Uncle Bill. Bill reassures her that she should not worry about the lost glasses. If they cannot be found, they will simply buy another pair. Layla quietly agrees. She decides not to tell him the real reason she lost them, that the Duke threw her hat into the river and caused all the trouble. There is no reason to make Bill worry. Instead, she convinces herself that the glasses must still be somewhere nearby. She resolves to retrieve them at dawn. Early the next morning, Layla returns to the Duke's annex and searches carefully, but the glasses are nowhere to be found. A crow caws from a nearby branch. Layla wonders briefly if the bird might have taken them. Meanwhile, Kyle is at home speaking to Phoebe, the rock pigeon that Layla trained with remarkable patience. For 2 years, the pigeon has faithfully delivered messages between them. Kyle takes a small letter from the bird and thanks it for its hard work before offering it a small reward. The message explains that Layla has lost her glasses and may not be able to meet him at the library today. She apologizes in the letter. Kyle frowns as he reads it, surprised that she could misplace something so important. Without wasting time, he grabs his bicycle and rushes outside. His mother watches him with concern and asks why he is leaving instead of studying. Kyle answers simply that he is going to the library. Kyle's mother presses further. She mentions Layla's name and wonders how long he plans to continue these childhood routines at such an important stage of his life. Kyle pushes the concern aside and rides quickly toward Layla's house. When he arrives, he immediately asks if she has found the glasses. Layla shakes her head. Kyle quickly suggests that they go into town together so he can buy her a new pair. For a moment, he realizes that his emotions are moving ahead of his thoughts. He almost forgets who Layla is. But she refuses. The determination in her eyes is unmistakable. No matter what anyone says, she will not give up searching. Later, Layla and Kyle enter the forest together to look for the missing glasses. Layla climbs a tree to check the branches. Suddenly, a flock of crows bursts into the air and scatters toward another grove. Layla pauses and asks Kyle if he should not return home. But he shakes his head firmly, determined to stay with her. At that moment, the Duke's car moves slowly along the forest path. Inside the vehicle, the men glance at the two young figures searching among the trees. One of them jokes that perhaps a crow has stolen Layla's glasses. The Duke listens quietly. He thinks to himself that many strange rumors must circulate among the servants. Yet he knows something else. There is no way Layla could have forgotten leaving the glasses on the deck that day. Now she is searching through nests and branches, as if she truly does not remember. He wonders if she simply does not want to remember. As the car passes, Layla catches sight of the Duke. His cold gaze unsettles her. Several days pass. Layla ventures even deeper into the forest, with Kyle happily accompanying her. Despite their persistent search, the Duke pretends not to notice them. Instead, he watches the birds in the trees, amused by the frantic way they build their nests. But as the days go on, his patience with the children's searching begins to fade. Finally, he decides to take some time from his busy schedule and walks toward the annex. A servant approaches and informs him that Marcus Lindman is expected to arrive earlier than planned, around noon. The servant explains that Madame has ordered special preparations for lunch and asks the Duke to attend if he has no other engagements. The Duke nods briefly. The servant leaves. Shortly afterward, Layla arrives at the annex and rings the bell. She apologizes politely for coming without notice. Almost immediately, she notices that the Duke's behavior is different from the day he teased her about the hat. Now he works calmly, speaking on the telephone and handling documents with quiet precision. He smiles occasionally, but never loses his steady composure. His posture remains straight and controlled, as if nothing could disturb him. Layla begins to understand why so many people admire him and call him perfect. Yet the idea that someone like him could be responsible for hiding her glasses suddenly feels almost foolish. She decides that asking him about it is pointless. Instead, she plans to continue searching the forest nests she has not yet checked. Just as she turns to leave, the Duke calls her to stop. He tells her to ask what she came to ask. Layla hesitates before mentioning the glasses she left on the deck the day she jumped into the water. She asks if he might have seen them. The Duke answers vaguely. His response leaves the matter uncertain. Perhaps he saw them. Perhaps he did not. Layla wonders briefly if he could have hidden them, but she dismisses the thought. Doing something like that would be far too cruel, even for him. Later that night, inside the master suite, a guest remarks that he did not expect Lady Claudine to arrange such a private gathering in such a secluded place. He jokes that the Duke must be unusually generous when it comes to his fiancée. Claudine notices his tone and calmly asks him not to use nicknames. Some of the others quietly agree with his comment. The man quickly apologizes, explaining that everyone simply became excited and drank too much. He says it is obvious that Claudine will soon become the Duke's wife. As he speaks, his attention drifts to the corner of the room. There, he notices a bird cage. He looks surprised to see it. The bird suddenly flies from the cage toward the Duke, and the Duke seems completely focused on caring for it. One of the men looks at the bird and wonders aloud why the Duke bothers raising birds only to hunt them later. He feels a strange sympathy for the creature. After all, the bird cannot understand the true nature of its master. For a moment, he cannot decide whether to laugh at the bird's foolish trust or pity it. He glances toward Claudine and asks what she thinks. Claudine calmly replies that either reaction would be appropriate. She recognizes the bird and asks whether the Duke has given it a name. If not, she suggests one. The Duke dismisses the idea. To him, a bird is simply a bird, nothing more. The man feels even more sorry for the creature. It has entrusted itself to a hunter, who will not even give it a name. Earlier that day, while Layla was asking the Duke about her missing glasses, a servant entered the room carrying an urgent telegram. The Duke gestured slightly. It was a clear signal for her to leave. Layla understood immediately. She would not be getting any answers today. Still, deep down, she knew the truth. It was not the crows who had taken her glasses. It was the Duke. But why? She wonders if perhaps he has some strange fascination with shiny things, like the crows themselves. A troubling thought crosses her mind. Will she have to keep visiting him, again and again, until he finally returns them? And somehow she doubts he will give them back easily. That same evening, a grand dinner party takes place at the Duke's estate. Guests fill the mansion. Music, laughter, and conversation continue late into the night. Meanwhile, the smaller annex building behind the estate remains almost completely deserted. Layla makes a quiet decision. Under the soft glow of moonlight, she will sneak in and retrieve her glasses. At the party, the Duke keeps the bird close beside him, but his thoughts drift elsewhere. They drift to Layla. Eventually, he excuses himself and heads toward the annex. He is confident she understood the meaning behind his earlier words. He knows her well enough now. A girl who spent days searching through crow nests for her glasses would never give up so easily. And persistence is exactly what will lead her into the trap he has carefully prepared. Inside the annex, he lies down quietly. Layla's glasses rest in his hand. He waits. Calm, patient. Then a faint sound breaks the silence. Layla has arrived. Instead of using the door he deliberately left slightly open, she climbs in through the window. The Duke notes this silently. Not unexpected. Yet, somehow, she still manages to surprise him. In the dim moonlight, Layla hesitates. Without her glasses, the room is blurry. She begins searching carefully, drawer after drawer. The Duke watches quietly, completely unbothered by her intrusion. After searching through several drawers, Layla grows frustrated. Where could the glasses possibly be? The Duke observes her thoughtfully. She is no longer a child. He has already accepted that. That realization is exactly why he set this small, pitiful trap and waited for her to fall into it. Finally, he speaks. His voice cuts through the darkness. He asks whether she is looking for the glasses he is holding. Layla freezes. Shock floods her face. Only now does she realize he has been there the entire time. She quickly apologizes, explaining that she did not know he was inside. The Duke asks calmly whether his absence would have made it acceptable for her to enter. Does she consider herself a thief? As she struggles to explain herself, her eyes fall on the object in his hand. Her glasses. Relief and embarrassment crash over her at the same time. She explains that she only wanted to take back what belonged to her. But the Duke watches her closely. He remarks that her attempt at bravery is almost futile. Yet she is still trembling. Pathetically. He turns and begins walking toward the door. Panic grips her. What if he throws the glasses into the river? Just like he did with her hat? She rushes after him, pleading desperately. She explains that she saved for a long time to buy them. The bright moonlight spills across the room. It reveals her thin nightwear. Realizing this, Layla quickly wraps her arms around herself and bends slightly, trying to hide her body. The Duke watches her with faint curiosity. In his mind, he wonders if she is being overly dramatic. After all, she has already seen every corner of his body before. Layla reminds herself silently. That moment had not been desire. It had been necessity. He asks quietly whether she actually wants him to look at her. Layla forces herself to remain calm, because one thought echoes in her mind. At any moment, the Duke could accuse her of theft. She continues to plead for forgiveness, and he notices how suddenly ladylike her behavior has become. She insists that regardless of her behavior, he remains a gentleman. He remarks that perhaps he is not, but she disagrees at once, insisting that he is the greatest gentleman in Kelsar. He finds the praise difficult to believe, yet she explains that everyone around him thinks the same, which leaves her almost certain of her judgment. She keeps pleading for her glasses, emphasizing how hard it had been for her to obtain them and how precious they are to her. At last, Matthias places the glasses back on Layla's face. His fingers brush her lightly as he studies her and steps closer. In that moment, he recognizes the feeling rising within himself. A craving for Layla, the girl who has grown into such a beautiful young woman. Yet he also recognizes the danger in that feeling. The intensity of it is brief, and he questions whether it is worth staining his life just to satisfy it. In the end, he decides that it is not. Indulging such a craving would serve no purpose. With that, he allows her to leave. Layla bows and walks away through the forest, her heart racing. When she reaches the water, she splashes her face with it, trying to steady herself. Her memory feels hazy, but certain details remain painfully vivid. The deep, calm blue eyes that seemed ready to swallow her whole. The heat of his hands, the touch of his fingers, the tremble of her breath under his presence, and the overwhelming embarrassment that followed. Later, staring at her glasses on the table, she quietly resolves never to see him again. Days pass, and Layla, who is usually always in the garden helping Bill Remmer, is nowhere to be seen. At the mansion, a servant informs Matthias that all preparations for the hunting session have been completed. Meanwhile, at Layla's home, Kyle offers to help with the laundry, and she quietly appreciates his presence. Afterward, he suggests going for a walk to her favorite tree near the river, but she declines, saying they can go next time because chores still need her attention. The next 10 days pass in careful avoidance. Layla stays away from the river entirely and does everything she can not to run into Matthias. Kyle notices the change and wonders if something is wrong, questioning why she stays home more than usual. He had expected her to wander more now that she has found her glasses. He also wonders why she is not wearing them, and Layla explains that she only uses them when reading because she is afraid of losing them again. Now she only goes to the garden when Matthias has already left the grounds, and whenever he returns, she immediately slips away, moving as if escaping danger. She resolves to continue living like this if it means avoiding him until the end of summer. One day, they see several men riding on horseback, and Kyle remarks that they must be going hunting. Layla raises her head and catches sight of Matthias among them. She quickly spreads a cloth to shield her view. In her mind, she reminds herself that when summer ends and autumn arrives, Matthias will return to the capital after becoming engaged to Claudine. If she can endure only until the season ends, perhaps peace will return to Arvis. The riders pass by. Kyle asks if she is feeling unwell and suggests that she come to his house instead, but she insists that she will finish her work by evening. She suggests they go inside briefly, though he can tell that she is not truly fine. She continues to believe that once Matthias leaves, Arvis Forest will finally feel peaceful again, and the confusing emotions tied to him will disappear. Still, that evening, she plans to go into the forest to attend to the birds that fall after the hunting. Meanwhile, Matthias remains in the forest longer than expected. He sends the guests back with his men while he continues alone. As the sun begins to set, he resumes hunting birds the way he always has. Yet something feels slightly empty. As the birds fly desperately through the trees, searching for freedom, he realizes that the thrill he once felt is no longer complete. Not far away, Layla walks carefully through the forest. With every few steps, she notices more fallen birds scattered across the ground than usual, and her heart tightens at the cruelty of the sport. Almost finishing her task, Layla unexpectedly walks straight into Matthias. He mutters quietly to himself that she keeps appearing. When he greets her, she notices how calm and composed he looks, as if he had remained there deliberately, anticipating that she would come to tend to the fallen birds. Then something catches her eye. A thin red thread tied to one of the plover chicks that hatched along the river the year before. For a moment, disbelief washes over her. How could a bird that had survived migration, endured winter, and returned from distant lands end like this? The weight of it settles in her chest, a mixture of sorrow and helplessness. Matthias simply tells her to continue her task. Layla moves carefully through the forest, gathering the fallen birds and checking the nests as best she can. After watching her for a while, Matthias asks about the red thread and why she tied it there. She explains quietly that she had tied the thread so she could see whether the birds that left would return the following year. But she never imagined their reunion would happen like this. Matthias notices the condemnation in her expression and asks what the problem is. These are his lands, his hunting grounds, his birds. Layla hesitates. Then she answers slowly that to the birds, the forest is not his land at all. It is their home, the place where they were born and raised. Matthias asks why he should care about the feelings of birds. Layla knows arguing with him is pointless, but she still insists that such cruelty is unnecessary. Even the smallest life deserves a measure of respect. A quiet determination rises inside her. She reminds herself that if she wants to say this, she needs courage. Matthias asks if she wants hunting to become a kind hunt. Realizing she may have gone too far, Layla apologizes quickly. He watches her and asks again why she cares so much about birds. She senses immediately that the real answer would not interest him. So instead, she tells herself it is better to leave. Frustration and weariness mix together as she turns away. But before she can go far, a gunshot echoes through the forest. Another bird falls? Matthias reminds her that her task is not finished. Layla turns back, pleading quietly for guidance. She asks what she has done wrong and wonders if this is meant as punishment. Matthias answers evenly that he has never punished her. He simply does his job, and she does hers. Still curious, he asks again why she is so fond of birds. Layla's thoughts drift far away, back to the day her mother left her. Since then, birds had always been there. Everywhere she wandered, they followed, hovering nearby, leaving with the seasons, returning again if she waited long enough. They had always come back. That is why she loves them. That is why their absence hurts. She finally asks whether he intends to hunt this way again. Matthias replies simply, "If needed." He glances at his watch, then steps forward. He explains that everything in his world must remain exactly as it should be. Orderly, proper, with no one hiding and no one running. Confusion crosses Layla's face as she asks what he means. Matthias simply tells her to stay in her place and leaves the explanation unfinished. She watches him walk away, trying to understand what place he means. Perhaps she thinks if she finds the answer, he might grant the birds a kinder hunt. But the Duke has no expectations for Layla. All he wants is for her to remain exactly where she belongs, an orphan living in his forest. A curious student who will someday graduate and become a teacher. Always in her place, quietly occupying the space assigned to her, just like everything else in his perfectly ordered world. Because Matthias himself was born into that same order, and over time he grew to become its master. In his world, everything is simple. Everything is clear. To his grandmother and mother, he is the proud heir. To the servants, a generous master. On the battlefield, a capable soldier. To the board members, a reliable businessman. He has always been something to someone. And he fulfills those roles effortlessly. Sometimes, almost too effortlessly. Sometimes it is so easy. It becomes boring. But this is life as it should be. That is the world the Duke knows. The world he has seen, heard, and learned to accept. Yet the lowly orphan living in his forest is different. Layla is nothing in the structure of his world. There is no place in a Duke's life for someone who serves no clear purpose. And yet, somehow, possessing something that is nothing feels strangely satisfying. It is new, unsettling, and oddly pleasant. Her emotions are nothing like the measured, predictable reactions of everyone else around him, and that difference amuses him. Above all, it is her tears that captivate him. A woman who cries with such quiet beauty, enough to make him want to witness it again. Later, he returns to the mansion where Lady Claudine greets him warmly. She asks if he enjoyed his walk and admits she has been waiting for him. She compliments the hunt, remarking how impressive it was and how everyone has been talking about it. The Duke casually suggests that she join them on the next hunt. Claudine politely refuses, laughing softly as she admits that seeing blood so closely might make her faint. She then mentions that she plans to host a gathering at Arvis soon, describing it as a sort of rehearsal. Once they are married, she will be the one welcoming guests, and her mother believes it would be wise for her to practice beforehand. She wishes to invite everyone she chooses and asks if he agrees. The Duke simply accepts. As the short summer night slowly fades, a quiet thought crosses his mind. Perhaps a gentler hunt next time would not be so bad. Meanwhile, in the rose garden, Layla resumes her usual place beside her Uncle Bill, helping with the flowers as she always does. She carries bouquets to the ladies gathered there, and Claudine instructs her to arrange them properly. When Layla asks if she may leave afterward, Claudine requests a small bundle of red roses. Layla nods and leaves to gather them. One of the ladies nearby whispers that Layla's politeness almost feels disrespectful. Another quietly agrees, noting the strange look in her eyes, as if she does not know her place. Claudine gently corrects them, reminding the ladies that Layla has lived a difficult life. She admits the girl may have flaws, but suggests that kindness might guide her better than harsh judgment. The ladies exchange doubtful glances. In their minds, girls like Layla should be taught their position properly before they begin appearing in noble society. Claudine remains thoughtful. She cannot entirely blame the ladies for their opinions. Even she cannot ignore the strange impression Layla leaves behind. There is obedience in the girl, but it does not come from loyalty. It comes from distance. While other noble young ladies eagerly seek Claudine's attention, Layla remains unmoved. Claudine has tried speaking to her many times, yet Layla never reacts the way others do. She simply endures quietly, as though life is something to bear rather than enjoy. And strangely, it is precisely this orphan girl who continues to stir curiosity among everyone around her. Soon, Layla returns with the requested red roses and asks if they will be sufficient. Claudine thanks her, then decides to give her something unexpected: a gift. In her mind, Layla is a poor orphan who still carries herself with the pride of a princess, a girl once deeply moved by the weight of a single gold coin. Claudine offers her an invitation instead, a memory she hopes Layla will remember. The two ladies beside her react with clear surprise. Layla hesitates, confused about why she has been given such a gift. Claudine explains that it is simply a graduation present, something meant to mark a moment she will carry with her in the future. Layla tries to refuse, but Claudine insists, her voice gentle but firm, leaving no room for argument. Later, the Duke walks through town on official business. As he passes a jewelry shop, his eyes briefly fall on a necklace displayed behind the glass. It sparkles brightly in the sunlight. Delicate, elegant, almost mesmerizing. For a moment, he studies it, then continues walking without hesitation, his thoughts already returning to the responsibilities awaiting him. Meanwhile, at Bill's house, the atmosphere feels restless. A maid vents her frustration, complaining about the strange ways of nobles she can never understand. Rumors are spreading quickly. Layla has been invited to attend the Duchess's gathering. Some even whisper that Claudine treats her like a little pet. Bill frowns at the description, clearly disliking it, though he listens quietly as the maid continues speaking. She reminds him that Claudine has called for Layla whenever she felt bored since childhood. Now, with this invitation to a gathering filled with noble ladies, the pressure surrounding Layla seems heavier than ever. The act may be called kindness, but for someone like Layla, it could feel intimidating. Bill understands the maid's concern, yet he quietly reflects. He knows the girl well. Layla is not easily frightened. All she needs to do is appear briefly at the gathering, greet the guests, and leave without causing trouble. The maid studies him with mild disbelief. She remarks that after raising Layla for so many years, he should understand her better than anyone. Bill admits with a faint sigh that he is still deciding where to guide her next in life, still weighing possibilities and futures he cannot fully predict. The maid chuckles under her breath and mutters that his thinking will probably never end. Even when Layla marries, raises children, and he eventually passes away, she suspects he will still be somewhere worrying about what path she should follow. Then a new idea occurs to her. Why not buy Layla a beautiful dress for the party? A surprise gift to honor her appearance among the nobles. Bill is immediately taken aback. He knows Layla too well. If he offered such a gift directly, she would refuse it without hesitation, unwilling to feel indebted to anyone. The maid quickly reassures him that she will give the dress to Layla herself. It will simply appear as a thoughtful gesture. Bill slowly reaches into his belongings and produces a small worn bag filled with money. The maid raises her eyebrows in mild surprise at the amount. She teasingly suggests that he should store his savings in a bank instead of carrying them around in an old bag. Bill calmly replies that the cabin in Arvis is far safer than any bank. Both of them know one thing with certainty. If Layla ever discovered this, she would be furious. The maid promises to keep it secret until the day of the party. As she carefully counts and organizes the bills, she asks for a little more, pointing out that Layla will need more than just a dress if she is going to stand among noble ladies. Without hesitation, Bill adds more money to the pile. Whatever is necessary, everything required to make Layla's appearance remarkable. The maid pauses for a moment, slightly amused by his sudden generosity. In her mind, she imagines Layla arriving at the gathering so radiant that even the noble ladies might feel unsettled by her presence. Just then, Layla enters the cabin. She pauses immediately, noticing the strange atmosphere in the room. Bill and the maid quickly hide the bag and the money as if nothing unusual had happened. Layla looks surprised to see Mona, the maid, standing there with a small selection of snacks. She considers sitting down for a moment to share a quick meal together, but Mona quickly refuses, insisting she has other matters to attend to. After Mona leaves, Bill quietly asks Layla what she plans to do about the invitation. Layla answers simply, she will make a brief appearance and leave soon after. She also mentions that she will attend with Kyle, since Dr. Ettman will be present at the gathering as well. Bill feels a quiet sense of relief hearing that. The young man is finally beginning to prove himself useful. He asks if she needs anything, perhaps a dress for the occasion. Layla immediately refuses. She insists she will only stay for a short time anyway. Bill studies her silently. The more important the event, the more carefully one should dress. Yet Layla clings stubbornly to her modest habits. She laughs lightly and insists that her school uniform will be perfectly fine. She does not want to become a burden to anyone. Bill notices the quiet struggle hidden beneath her words, the way she constantly restrains herself, limiting what she allows herself to want. He wishes he could comfort her somehow, but the words never come. Madame Mona had been right about Layla all along. Sensing his concern, Layla gently takes his hand and reassures him that she is perfectly fine. For a brief moment, Bill wonders who is really comforting whom. That night, Layla wakes abruptly from another vivid nightmare. The memories pull her back to childhood, back to the long years when she wandered from one relative's home to another, back to the bullying, the beatings, and the constant fear of being abandoned again. In those days, survival meant one thing: work without stopping, move quietly, become invisible. Crying was never an option. She had learned to smile even when tears burned behind her eyes. She practiced brightness over sorrow because the world had no patience for a crying orphan. Eventually, she crossed the border into Berg completely alone, clinging to the final hope she had left. If that hope failed, the orphanage would be waiting. She remembers forcing a brave smile that day. Then she remembers Uncle Bill's eyes when he first saw her. Kind, warm, sympathetic. For the first time in years, she felt the warmth of something that resembled a family. Those memories remain etched permanently in her heart. Layla slowly rises from bed and opens the window. The cool breeze of early morning drifts into the room, and for a moment, the nightmares finally fade. The Duchess's party awaits Layla that night. Nervousness lingers in her chest, but it is tempered by quiet resolve. She tells herself she will attend bravely, stay only long enough to be polite, and then leave before drawing unnecessary attention. As she prepares breakfast in the small cabin, her thoughts drift briefly to Lady Claudine. Layla cannot help but think that someone like her, raised among luxury and certainty, could never truly understand a life shaped by survival and fear. Bill notices that she has woken unusually early and greets her warmly. For him, for this small, safe home filled with care and quiet comfort, Layla feels she would endure anything. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, a servant finishes preparing the Duke for the evening's gathering. The man reports that everything has gone smoothly. Someone left about an hour earlier, he says, so the items that needed to be delivered should already have reached their destination. The Duke acknowledges the report with a small nod of thanks, though his thoughts are already moving elsewhere. He has already heard the news that Layla has been invited to the party. The information reached him through his mother, accompanied by praise for Claudine's kindness and generosity. The idea strikes him as faintly ridiculous, yet he does not object. In his mind, he pictures the scene that will unfold if he says nothing. Claudine will likely bring Layla before the assembled nobles dressed in modest clothing, surrounding her with sympathy and pity. Humbling that irritating girl's quiet pride would probably give Claudine great satisfaction, but the Duke decides something else. If there is amusement to be found, it will belong to him alone. Sharing what is his has never been something he enjoys. The thought of someone else claiming that pleasure irritates him more than he cares to admit. Elsewhere in the mansion, Hessen quietly moves several gift items prepared by the chef on Bill's behalf into the Duke's chamber. At the same time, replacement items are carefully repackaged and delivered to the cabin as if they came directly from Bill. Hessen asks what should be done with the remaining pieces. The Duke responds with quiet indifference. Dispose of them. What becomes of them does not interest him. At the cabin, Layla stares at the gifts that have arrived with a mixture of amazement and disbelief. She cannot help wondering how much money her uncle must have spent. Bill, however, is thinking something very different. He had expected Mona to prepare something thoughtful, perhaps even elegant. But what lies before them now goes far beyond what he imagined. Even to his untrained eye, the clothing, shoes, gloves, and the boutique employee who delivered them personally all suggest an extraordinary price. His attention lingers on the necklace. For a moment, he wonders if Mona charged him for that as well. Still, he pushes the thought aside. He had already decided to spend generously enough. The only thing that truly matters is that Layla can attend the party without feeling out of place. If he handles everything himself, she will not need to worry about any of it. Though he knows Layla too well, she worries about everything. Layla studies the ensemble carefully. It is far more than she ever expected. Bill reminds her that it is only for one day. She intends to attend briefly and return immediately afterward. Her modesty surprises him again. Even now, she hesitates to accept something that was meant to protect her dignity. Bill reminds himself once more that Layla hates the feeling of being a burden. Compared to what he would like to give her if circumstances allowed, these gifts are still very small. Still, a mischievous thought crosses his mind. What if she refuses them? He considers the possibility seriously. If she does refuse, he could simply throw the items away. She would never even know they existed. The thought makes him regret his words almost immediately. Just then, someone calls his name. Bill turns to see Kyle approaching. For a moment, he reflects on how he once believed the gluttonous boy would remain childish forever. Yet now, properly dressed, Kyle carries himself like a young gentleman. Kyle asks why Bill is standing outside and wonders where Layla might be. Bill answers in his usual vague way, while Kyle mentions that the party will begin soon. Then the door opens. Layla steps outside. Both men fall silent. For a moment, neither of them can hide their astonishment. Bill quickly regains his composure and turns to Kyle. "Today," he says firmly, "the boy will stand in his place." Kyle must take responsibility for protecting Layla throughout the evening. Kyle nods quietly, accepting the duty without hesitation. Layla moves closer to him, whispering nervously that she feels strange wearing such unfamiliar clothing. Kyle reassures her with a soft smile. Then, gently but firmly, he urges her forward. She hesitates again, but Kyle insists in a calm voice suited for the moment. Tonight, he reminds her, she should see him not merely as a childhood friend, but as her escort. Layla finally accepts Kyle's reassurance and resolves quietly to do her best. Before leaving, she shares a brief and affectionate farewell with Uncle Bill. He watches the two of them walk away from the cabin together, hoping she will not spend the evening worrying, hoping that, just for tonight, she might allow herself to enjoy something. When they arrive at the Grand Hall, Layla pauses once more at the entrance. The scale of the place, the lights, the elegant guests. It all feels overwhelming. She glances at Kyle again, searching his face for reassurance about her appearance. Kyle studies her for a moment and nods with quiet confidence. She looks perfectly fine. More than fine. He gently encourages her to trust him and simply follow his lead. Layla takes a small breath and nods. For tonight, she decides she will try to silence the doubts in her heart. Together, they step inside. Across the hall, unnoticed among the gathered nobles, the Duke watches her arrival. And the faintest hint of amusement appears in his eyes. The night has only just begun. If you want to see what happens next, let me know in the comments and I'll bring part 2 as soon as possible. What are your thoughts so far? Drop your opinions below and make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the next upload when it goes live. For those asking, the title of the manhwa is Cry Even Better If You Beg. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next recap.